Hello, Earthlings. This is your favorite Martian, the Martian himself, Skylar Mars, and welcome to a very special edition of MarsTV. Before I introduce our guest at this time, I'd like to give a few shout-outs to some very special professional wrestling friends that I have. You will know them as The Enterprise, Ricky Flash, Chad Hockley, and Roman Alexander. They've all been very good to me in helping me trying to get my place in this world of wrestling. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our guest at this time. He is one of the best wrestlers on the entire West Coast, if not the country. Thor Swollenson himself and FSW's Mr. Cash in the Case. I'd like to present Alexander Hammerstone. Alex, thank you very much for coming on to the show.
Thanks for having me. How's it going?
It's going extremely well. Before I get into the serious business, I just want to, break the ice. How was your weekend, man?
Weekend was fantastic. Big night at FSW. Came out in top in the ladder match, which is awesome. Now a title shot whenever I want it for whatever belt. And I went home after a ladder match without any serious injuries, which is also a nice bonus.
Oh yeah, because the ladder match is infamously dangerous.
It's very, very much so. It's that was the second ladder match I've ever done, and it was a blast.
Oh yeah, and now, speaking of ladder matches, that brings into my mind the hardcore style, which is a good transition into the first question I had here. Styles, you have a very creative kind of moveset because I believe you said on Facebook you weigh 220. Look 240, wrestle like you're 180. Pounds. Yes. Yeah. I'm surprised I remembered all that.
That's, basically, I never looked at any specific style of wrestling and said that's what I want to do. I wanted to be able to hang with anybody in any style, so whether it's, throwing guys around and having power moves because I am going to be one of the strongest guys on any roster anywhere, or whether it's flying off the top rope or some of the more athletic based stuff I do. I've always wanted to have a very well-rounded style in the ring, so it's nice to surprise people with a little bit more athleticism than they might expect from a guy my size, and vice versa. It's nice to go in there with the heavyweights and still be able to toss them around.
Of course. And, I want to go into here the pro level, because you are on a very pro level of skill. I'm not trying to bootlick or anything. I'm just, you've gotten to a certain skill level, and I got to imagine you've been working for a very long time to try and get there.
Yeah, it's all a process, and wrestling is always a process. And if I watch my stuff from a year ago, it bothers me because I'm like, oh man, I was terrible back then. And you know what? Next year I'm going to be watching my matches from this time and think, oh, they were terrible, because the thing is, this is 24/7. I train twice a day, in the gym, in the ring. I study wrestling nonstop, and then on top of that, I'm always going everywhere I can, whether it's just the Southwest, Arizona, California, Vegas, Colorado, whatever it is, or if it's getting on a plane and going out east. I'm going everywhere I can, and I'm never taking any time off. So hopefully improving at a rate that shows that's the work I'm putting in.
And, of course, the fans are responding very well. You've played the heel, and you still get cheered a lot of the time, Does that make it kind of difficult for you sometimes when you're trying to be the bad guy and still cheering for you?
Well, that has happened in certain places. But for the most part, I'm fairly certain that anywhere that I'm trying to get the reaction, pretty much I'm usually getting the reaction I'm going for. So at a place like FSW, that place is going crazy for me. I'm a fan favorite. That's the reaction I'm trying to get. At other places where I'm going after a different reaction, I usually get that. So I haven't honestly really experienced too much of fighting an uphill battle in that sense.
All right, and speaking of I don't know which promotion this was, but I was going to bring this up at some point. I guess I'll just bring it up now. You seem to, one of the reasons it seems to me mostly that you're more of a fan favorite is because you like to have a lot of fun in the ring. Mainly, Exhibit A would be He-Man and Skeletor.
Yeah, that was actually for Freakshow Wrestling, which is put on by Sin Bodhi, who is a creative genius and also just one of the, he puts on a one-of-a-kind show. Freakshow Wrestling is like no other wrestling show you're going to see anywhere else. So, yeah, it's very rare that you see Hammerstone in his true form there. You'll probably see He-Man or something of that nature, but yeah, I've always been a fan of all styles of wrestling, and I like to embrace all styles of wrestling. And there's some people that are really good at the one thing they do, and that's great. But I want to be able to go to a company like Premier that is completely focused on presenting the athletic competition of a sport. And, at Premiere, everybody might as well come out to no music wearing plain black gear, because right there, it's all about what you're doing in between those ropes. But I also want to be able to go to a place like Freak Show where I dress up like He-Man and entertain people based on that style of wrestling. So I've always enjoyed every part of the spectrum of pro wrestling.
Speaking of enjoying pro wrestling, that actually does work as a very good segue to what I really wanted to get into when I started, when I wanted to get you on the show was, I want to find out, I guess, a good way to put this is, who is Alexander Hammerstone, and why does he love wrestling? So let's turn the clock back. When does a young Alexander Hammerstone decide he wants to be a wrestler?
It's one of those things, like I'm sure most people say, it's one of those things I loved my whole life. It was always super intimidating, it just seemed so much larger than life, and I was never by any means an athlete in school. I was always, dead last and everything, a scrawny little kid who played in bands and stuff. But playing music actually did get me into the realm of performing and loving to perform for people. So that was actually a good way to get started. And then basically, I decided, I want to get serious about it. So I did start hitting the gym, and I became very serious about it, got into bodybuilding, powerlifting, and these things. And it was one of those things where I'd be at the gym, and I kept saying, one day I'm going to be a pro wrestler. When I get bigger, I'm going to be a pro wrestler. When I get bigger, I'm going to be a pro wrestler. And finally, somebody was just like, hey, dude, you're pretty big. You might as well do it. Stop talking about it already. And then I started down that road, and here I am today. And I think why I love it so much is because it is one of those things that taught me about how my hard work can pay off, because it's not a team sport. It's not something that you're relying on three other guys. Back when I played in bands, it was a group project. We all had to put in work or it was going to fail. But with wrestling, it was all about me. It was all on me. I couldn't blame anything on anybody else. Nobody else could take credit for my success, and it was just it's been hard work and a grind, and I love putting in the work, and I love getting success from it. So that's I'm just addicted to competition and working hard, and I want to be the best, and I want the attention. To be flat out honest, there's no better feeling than standing on top of a ladder and being the one who gets to grab the case. So that's all a product of hard work, determination, and so that's who I am. I'm that guy who just wants to outwork everybody. And at the end of the day, people could like me or hate me or whatever it is, but at the end of the day, I don't want there to be any question of whether or not I respect the business, I take it seriously, and I put hard work and everything I have into it.
Very almost inspiring words from our man Alexander Hammerstone here today. Just real quick, I would like to thank you again for coming on the show before we continue.
Yeah, of course.
And there was something I thought was kind of interesting is what I mentioned earlier, your clashing styles, and that made me curious. You're pretty clean in the ring, and you do have a hodgepodge of styles, as you did say yourself. Where is it that you learned to be a wrestler? Where does the young Alexander take that serious step?
Well, when I first started training, I trained under a relatively unknown guy in the Southwest, but his name was Vega, and he was very old school, very, very old school, really intense with technique and drills and footwork and the basics. I was spending hours a night for months hitting the ropes and doing rolls and taking bumps and doing things of that nature before I ever got to actually start doing body slams and working practice matches and things like that. So, and on a little unique part of his training though was that he was very much lucha influenced. So I did get a couple, I got a little bit of taste of that lucha influence at the very beginning, and it was funny because I was being trained and I was getting to do some more athletic stuff that a bigger guy wouldn't typically do. And actually, it's funny because after Vega, I moved on and I trained with Triple X, Lawrence Tyler, Hawaiian Lion, out here in Arizona as well. And they had a school. It was the Championship Wrestling from Arizona, ran a school at the time. And then I trained with them for another year and a half or so. And they taught me a lot more about the psychology of wrestling and how to put stuff together and where to put stuff together. And they kind of beat a lot of that stuff I was doing out of me, because at times, it doesn't always make sense for, the big guy to be doing, all the little guy's stuff, So in a sense, I had to go back and relearn some of the stuff that I learned right at the beginning. But I have bounced around and trained with a lot of different people, and I continue to. If there's a seminar that I can get to, I'm going to go to it. If there's an opportunity to roll around with somebody who's, going to teach me, I'll do it. Even just traveling with guys more experienced than me is still a learning process. So I'm definitely still a student of the game, and I don't by any means think that I've got this down. I always want to keep learning. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm still a student.
I actually like the way you put that, because a lot of guys do, even when they're close to retire, say that they're still learning things. And I wanted to talk about your time in Arizona AFW, which, by the way, as an Arizonan myself, it's nice to know that we have way more promotions than I thought would be out here.
Out in Arizona, yeah.
Mm-hmm. You actually kind of opened up the door for that, which is why I was so excited to get to meet you, or speak with you, rather. For those of you at home, this is like a radio phone interview. I wanted to talk about you not coming back to AFW, Arizona Wrestling Federation, Arizona. Oh, we're so nervous. Why did that happen? Where are you going?
Well, the thing is with AWF, basically, there was so AWF is a company that I like to really give myself credit for helping build. I main evented the very first AWF show, and pretty much was on every show since then. But yeah, I ended up having a match against Evan Daniels, and it was a title versus career match. His title on the line, my career, or my contract with the company, for a better way to put that. And I just, I lost the match. So now AWF has been without Hammerstone, but you know what? Never say never. There's who knows what could happen later on down the road. As for right now, I've been working a lot elsewhere, and just getting new places. So never say never, but there's always chances in the future. But other than that, there's still some new stuff popping up in Arizona. There's PHX Wrestling, and then there's Championship Wrestling from Arizona is making a comeback. So the Arizona wrestling scene is going to change quite drastically in the next couple months for sure. I don't know exactly how it's all going to play out. It should be interesting, but Arizona's kind of been kind of hit or miss, because there's not too much that's been going on out here in the last couple years, to be honest. With the exception of AWF, and then RWA, which only runs sometimes only four times a year. There hasn't been much worth going to. So that might be about to change, and that could be a whole new influx of out-of-state talent, which is always good for an area. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting for sure.
All right. I do like getting the input of wrestlers on, what they think of wrestling going on in the place that they're from, which is really nice to get to talk to, a home state man.
Yeah.
But talking about wrestling in other places, you say you have other places to go. Do you have any places you'd like to go, or any places that you are going you'd like to speak about?
Well, I've been busy nonstop. This entire year has been pretty much nonstop busy. It is, there's certain companies or certain places I worked regularly that I ended the relationship with, whether or not it was on good terms, or if it was just, I need to open up some time to go elsewhere. But through the end of 2016, I'm basically booked up almost solid. So at least 2 or 3 shows every weekend, which is great. I've been doing a lot more in California, which is good because there's so much talent out there. I'm just signed on to do like 6 dates with Dreamwave Wrestling over in near Chicago, Illinois. I'm doing some shows with them through the end of the year, which will be great. As far as stuff, I'd like to do anything and everything. If I get contacted to go to any state that wants to bring me out and wants to pay to have Hammerstone, it's going to happen. I want to go everywhere. I want to keep learning from everybody. I want to keep wrestling the best in every area of the country. And then as far as personal goals, getting over to Europe would be great. Getting over to Japan would be great. I've done Canada, I've done Mexico, and I'd like to go back to either of those places when the time's right. But definitely Europe or Japan would be a huge goal to knock off my bucket list.
And now I'd like to ask a question about where you are now in FSW. For the longest time, you did have a tag team known as the God of Wars. That was one of the things when I announced this interview. I posted you were a former member of the God of Wars, but why is it former? Whatever happened to that?
Oh, well, we are still very much affiliated. If you're not familiar, and for people who aren't familiar, my tag team partner with the Gods of War is Joe Graves, and he's just currently out with a bicep injury. He tore his bicep during some training, so now he's just out for the time being. So there's no end to that tag team by any means. It's just something that he's currently can't wrestle. So here I am. And the thing is with a tag team like the Gods of War, is we're a great functioning unit. We have fun wrestling together. But the thing is, you're talking about 2 guys who could very easily be standalone stars and standalone main eventers. And when Graves is going places and main eventing and holding heavyweight championships, and I'm doing the exact same thing everywhere else, it's we're not always going to be tagging up because we're credible singles competitors as well. So when you need someone to go up against a Marcus Burke or an Eli Drake at FSW, sometimes that guy is going to be Hammerstone, and that means that you're not going to be throwing the Gods of War in a tag team match. That doesn't mean we're not still affiliated. Graves is my best friend, and very much still possibility of tagging in the future once he's all healed up. But for now, that injury has been kind of what's separated the tag team as per right now.
Which gonna help bring me to another point about your singles career, FSW. A lot of this, if I can just kind of blatantly say that, like, you've not exactly been in kayfabe. Is it? You don't always win, you don't always lose. Is there some times when you've lost in anywhere you've worked and you've had a lot of fun still?
I always have fun. I don't, obviously everybody wants to go home with a victory, but the thing is, I don't think there's ever been a match where I walk away looking like a loser. You know, when you have a match against someone like, you know, if you're I could only assume you're referencing, you know, some of my past matches at FSW, because in the past couple of months I haven't always been victorious. But if the thing is, if you look across who's standing across the ring, if I'm wrestling a guy like Eli Drake, who is the King of the Mountain champion for TNA, and we go at it for 15 minutes and he ends up with the victory, it's not like he came in and walked in and beat me up and took a victory. He had to fight for it, and I put up a solid main event against a guy like that. That's still, you know, that's still something to be proud of, and that's still something that I very much enjoy doing. And it's, you know, you don't get better by, you know, if you threw me in with Joe Schmo and I beat him up and pinned him in 3 minutes, or if I went in there and had a war with, you know, a legitimate main event talent and they come up with the win, that's the match I'd rather have, to be honest, you know, because that's what makes me better, and that's what makes, you know, that's what makes anyone better. And if you don't understand that, then have fun playing with the little fish in the little pond. But I'm ready to go out and swim in the ocean and swim with the sharks.
Swim with the sharks. Alexander Hammerstone versus sharks. Can someone book that? I'd like to see you fight a shark. I think that would be very entertaining. Would you put a shark over?
I'm just wondering if he'll sandbag me when I try to pick him up for the Stonebreaker. That's all I want to care about.
That's wonderful. Okay, we now have just birthed a dream match. I'm going to end that there.
There we go.
All right. And I want to end my list of questions. We're going to have some fan questions after this, but I'm going to end my own list of questions with something personal I wanted to ask you myself, which is anytime I do this show, anytime I'm talking to a wrestler, as someone, I'd love nothing more in my life than to be a professional wrestler, so I always ask for any and all advice they'd like to give me.
Well, there's no time like the present, so it's just like somebody told me, if you're talking about doing it, just shut up and do it. And also, but it's hard. It's not, you know, a lot of people think, I don't understand the thought process when I ask somebody when they show up on the first day of school at a wrestling school, and I say, okay, so what sports did you play in college? Oh, I didn't play any in college. Okay, what sports did you play in high school? Well, I didn't. I'm like, okay, well, what gym do you go to? I don't go to a gym. Okay, so what the hell makes you think you can do this? This is something that you need to respect and treat with the same tenacity that you would treat if you were trying to be any other athlete in any other sport. So I don't understand, because it's not like you're going to go walk into, you know, even if it's a community college, it's not like you're going to show up to the football team tryouts if you've never played football and you've never worked out and you've never done any of that. So, you know, you need to treat this with serious, with a serious level of respect. If you're going to be a pro wrestler, you need to be an elite athlete, and that means training your ass off. That means studying your ass off. It's a lot of hard work, and honestly, there's a lot of people who want to do this who aren't cut out for it, and even there's a lot of people who are in the business today who aren't cut out for it. And, you know, that's the thing that's wrong with it, is because there's some people who, you know, if it gets too hard, if guys like me want to hold the standard too high, then whoever we're trying to just raise up to the level that they need to be a pro wrestler, they'll just go somewhere else where it's easier, and that is complete garbage, and that's what's wrong with it today, you know. And people want to call a guy like me a bully for that, but the thing is, pro wrestling is supposed to have a standard, and more people are trying to lower that standard. But the thing is, those people should not be allowed anywhere near what we're doing. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm really hard on people coming in, and I'll be straight up, I'll be honest, because, you know, the other day I was at our training school here in Arizona, and there was a kid, and he was just nailing stuff. I'd never seen him before. I said, hey, what's your background? And he said, well, I played soccer and baseball in high school, and I was also on the wrestling team. and he had been there. That was maybe 2 weeks in, and he was doing stuff better than the guys who had been there 3 months. And you want to know why? Because he's used to being an athlete, because he's used to training hard, because he understands how to push himself, and he has that athletic base. These other kids, they show up to training and they want to do 2 hours a night, 2 times a week, and in between that, they're not going to the gym, they're not doing anything to get better. This is a real sport. You need to respect it like a real sport, and you need to put in that work. Otherwise, you need to get out. And it's bizarre to me that there's wrestlers in Arizona, and that they used to come to our training school, because we ran the Championship Wrestling from Arizona training school, and we had a tough tryout. You had to try out to become part of the training school, which is another thing that I think that should be a thing, because too many training schools are out there just to make money, which to an extent I understand, but you can't baby people in this. You can't. So we actually had a tryout that you had to pass to even get into the school. And there are guys that came and did that tryout, and it was too hard for them, so they quit. But then they just went down to the other promotion that ran downtown and started wrestling there, because those guys were easier on them, and they just let them in. And that's what's wrong with this. So my advice, if you want to be a pro wrestler, you need to know what you're getting yourself into, and you need to work your damn ass off. Because if you don't, and you don't take this seriously, and you run into a guy like me who does, and you're going to be exposed really fast, and I'm not going to be happy about it.
You feeling okay?
Yeah.
You know what? I love your passion. I'm taking literally, like, when I do these, I take every word they say when they give me advice to heart. So I will remember that for the rest of my life. So thank you for that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's ridiculous, but that's kind of the way it is. And I don't understand the idea of wanting to be like, call yourself a pro wrestler just to call yourself a pro wrestler. Like, but there's a lot of people that do this, but I do this because I want to actually, add to the business and, do something good for professional wrestling and make something myself and make some money. If you see somebody in this that does this who, if someone's never been to a local level wrestling show and they go to a show and then they see these skinny fat guys wearing crappy gear wrestling in a crappy ring, and they're just horrible at what they do, there no way would you consider them anything like what you see on television with the WWE product. If that's someone's first exposure to independent wrestling, then when they see a flyer of, for FSW or for PCW or any of these companies that are presenting a incredible, legitimate product, which with talent top to bottom, then they see that flyer, they're going to go, oh, so that's like that other show I went to. And that's why it's not okay. And those guys want to think, well, it's okay because we're doing our own thing. But no, because you're saying what you're doing is the same as what I'm doing, and it is not. It is not even close. So that's why it needs to be rough, and it needs to be hard, and it's not supposed to be for everybody. If you really love this, but you don't want to put in any of that work, then you need to keep paying for the tickets and sitting down to see guys like me who want to put in the work. But you shouldn't be allowed to just go start your own playtime company down the road. That's not how it should be.
Thank you very much for your advice. I know this is I know that was a personal question, but I really do appreciate that.
Oh yeah, no, of course. That goes for anybody.
All right, and finally, I'd like to. We have actually quite a few. One of them just came in, and I'm gonna let this one slide. I said an hour, but that's all right. We've got our fan questions written down. Are you ready for some fan questions?
Let's go for it.
All right. All of these are from Facebook, so I would usually tell you what social media it was from, but they're all from Facebook. Valerie Walters wants to know, what is your favorite Pop-Tart player? Because you have your famous affinity for Pop-Tarts.
Well, I go around a lot. I change, because I eat, so for anybody who's confused, I don't sit here and eat Pop-Tarts all day to look like this. I have one with my breakfast every single morning, but that's it, one. So that being said, because I do eat them frequently, my favorite kind of changes. Current favorite is cinnamon roll.
Lovely. I'm a fan of the s'mores ones myself.
I was really high on the s'mores for like the last 2 weeks, but I think I went through like 2 boxes of them straight, so cinnamon roll's doing the trick right now.
All right. Julian Christopher Rhodes asks, if you want to talk about it, what happened with Paragon, and what is it like being Mr. Cash in the Case?
Okay, well, the entire thing with Paragon is really a long story. It's a big can of worms to open. I will say, I'm not trying to put over other podcasts on your podcast, but I did do a podcast with Danny Duggan. It's called The Hot Seat, and they archive all their stuff, and that interview was really kind of specifically geared towards that part of my career, working with them and that experience, and we really dive into detail in that interview, because that's not a question I can answer very quickly. That would easily add another 30 minutes onto this interview. So if you're really curious about that, you could go find that interview where I really get into it.
All right, and I very much appreciate you not try to put other podcasts over mine, but frankly, I hope you didn't. I hope you knew this prior to getting on here. Not very many people watch yet, so probably wouldn't be a problem.
I hear you, brother. And then as for being Mr. Cash in the Case, it's great because, I've been working for FSW for years now, and I've been climbing my way to the top. I actually left FSW for a period of time, which a lot of people might know, but they might have not even realized. There was a good period of time where I left FSW, and I went a lot of other places to prove myself as a main eventer and prove myself as a top talent. So when I came back, and now I'm kind of in that upper echelon, and it's great to have this guaranteed title shot, because before I didn't feel ready to be the FSW champion, because it is a prestigious belt and it's only been held by top guys. But now I do feel ready. I do feel ready to cash in and be the guy who represents that company, who holds it on my back. So it's a great feeling to know that I'm one step away from getting there.
Which actually would also answer Brandon Dominique Talley's question, who are you looking to cash in on? It seems you're going right for Kevin Cross.
Let's just say I ain't no X or no limits division type guy. I feel, not to take away from that at all, because the guys fighting for the no limits title are having incredible matches and they're incredible competitors. I've never got to wrestle a guy like Funny Bone who recently was holding that belt, and I've never had a real match with Cody, Cutthroat Cody, who's holding it currently. So it's a great division, but the thing is, I want to be at the top. I want to be holding the heavyweight strap. So that's currently my current plan. That's what I'm thinking. Obviously nothing's set in stone, and my mind can change. And when the time comes, everybody's gonna know. But for now, I'm going bigger. I think I'm going to go big.
All right, and if I can plug myself for a second, I did have one of these podcast episodes with Cutthroat Cody, aka Crash Test Cody. If anyone wants to go back and watch that, these all be in a playlist. Really nice guy, by the way.
Yeah, awesome guy.
All right, and the last fan question, which I really didn't know what to make of this at first. A man by the name of Danny Limelight. Does that mean anything to you?
Oh yeah, Danny Limelight. That's not a fan, bro. That's a wrestler out in California.
Well, I figured as much because he challenged you to a one-on-one match.
Danny's a good guy. Danny's he's a up and comer in the business. He's still really young in the business, but he's working really hard at it. And as I've gotten to know him a little bit better, I like him more and more because, if you want for me to like you in wrestling, step one is to work hard, work your ass off. Step two is to repeat step one for the rest of fucking time. So all you gotta do is work hard, and I'm gonna respect you. I'm gonna like you. Danny Limelight works really hard at this. He's got a little bit of a mouth on him, and he's got a little big of an ego to be challenging Hammerstone. So, but you know what? If the time comes, if anybody wants to book that match, I'd be more than happy to take on Danny and toss him around a little bit and see what he's got. I know he's got a lot of fight in him, and I know he's gone in some big time matches and always looks good and always puts up a solid match. So I'd be really happy to wrestle Danny.
All right. I love that. And also, someone book him against a great white shark. Because that would still be amazing. If Brock Lesnar can F5 a shark, I want to see Alexander Hammerstone just drop the hammer on a freaking shark. That would be amazing. All right. And, thank you very much for coming on to the MarsTV podcast. Before we go, is there anything you'd like to plug or talk about?
Let's just plug the good old social media. So look me up on Facebook as Alexander Hammerstone. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Snapchat as just at Alex Hammerstone. So yeah, give me a follow. I'll be updating my dates and any shows I'm doing on there. I got some new t-shirts coming out soon, so pay attention to the social media. I guess that's about it, I got a lot of big shows coming up next month. PCW in Torrance, California. I'm going to be taking on Sami Callihan, which is going to be huge. PHX Wrestling is having their debut show August 19th in Mesa, Arizona. I'm actually got my first 2 shows with Dreamwave Wrestling next month, so just pay attention. I got a lot of stuff going on, and I'll definitely be keeping everybody updated.
All right. And if I could plug myself for a second before we go, you can watch the MarsTV podcast on Planet Mars, which is the name of the channel. I am, of course, your host, the Martian himself, Skylar Mars. You can follow me on Twitter at the Skylar Mars or on Instagram as the Martian Dude. I've just recently opened a Facebook page under the name Skylar Mars. Please like and follow if you will. And next month, August 27th, I believe it is, at High Impact Wrestling. I'm not a trained wrestler yet, but I am still a Class A wrestling journalist. So I will be having some high impact interviews, if you will, live in the ring. I am not going to give away who yet, but we will see, and it's going to be a lot of fun. So if you're in the Tucson, Arizona area, please come down and see what High Impact Wrestling has to offer. And that'll be it. Thank you very much, Alexander, for coming on to the MarsTV podcast.
Right on, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, and we will see you fans at home soon.